The storm came down from the mountains like a living thing, howling and clawing at the frozen forest. Ethan should not have been out there, but the emergency beacon on his wrist had pulsed once, then gone silent. No colony signal vanished without a reason, and in the frontier worlds, curiosity often meant survival. The snow was knee-deep, the wind sharp enough to cut skin, and that was when he saw them. Two figures half-buried near a collapsed escape pod, their skin glowing faintly blue beneath the frost. They were not human, but they were young, fragile-looking, and dying. One stirred weakly when he knelt, her silver eyes fluttering open as if unsure whether he was real. The other clutched her sister's hand, even in unconsciousness, refusing to let go. Ethan did not hesitate, because in the outer systems, mercy was a habit, not a choice. He lifted them both, ignoring the cold burning his arms, and turned back toward his shelter. Behind him, the storm swallowed the wreckage, erasing all evidence that the sisters had ever been there. The shelter was small, metal walls, humming as heaters struggled against the cold. Ethan wrapped the sisters in thermal blankets, monitoring their vitals with a cracked med scanner. Their biology was alien but elegant, crystalline veins carrying light instead of blood. When they finally woke, it was the older one who spoke first, her voice soft and musical. She called herself Lyra, and the younger was Sierra, daughters of a drifting starborn house. Their ship had been attacked, their distress call ignored by every passing vessel. They expected fear or rejection from the human, but Ethan only nodded and offered warm nutrient broth. Sierra watched him closely, curiosity overtaking exhaustion. To them, humans were rumored to be harsh, war-driven creatures. Yet this one moved gently, spoke quietly, and never once looked at them like trophies or threats. That night, as the storm raged outside, the sisters realized something unsettling. They felt safe. Days passed, then weeks, as repairs to communication arrays took longer than expected. Lyra helped with calculations, her species gifted with stellar navigation instincts. Sierra explored the forest edge, marveling at Earth-like life under Ethan's watchful eye. They learned human customs, laughter, music, and the strange warmth of shared meals. Ethan learned about their culture, where bonds were rare and precious. Among their people, emotional attachment was not easily given, but once formed, it was permanent. Sierra was the first to say it, her cheeks glowing softly as she admitted she did not want to leave. Lyra followed soon after, confessing that saving their lives had bound him to them by ancient law and deeper feeling. Ethan was stunned, torn between duty and a growing affection he had tried to ignore. He reminded them he was human, fragile, and bound to a world that barely noticed him. Lyra only smiled and replied that stars did not care for such boundaries. That night, Ethan realized the shelter no longer felt empty. The rescue signal finally reached the wider network, but it was not a peaceful ship that answered. A cruiser from the Dominion arrived, claiming authority over all starborn survivors. They demanded the sisters be handed over for processing and political leverage. Ethan stood in the doorway, unarmed, refusing. The officer laughed until Lyra stepped forward, eyes blazing with ancestral power. Sierra activated the beacon core they had secretly rebuilt, projecting proof of Dominion war crimes. Human colony ships answered the call, drawn by data, not diplomacy. For the first time, the galaxy saw humans stand between predators and the helpless. The Dominion retreated, not defeated but exposed. Lyra and Sierra looked at Ethan with something deeper than gratitude. They saw a protector, a partner, and a future not written by fear. The sisters were offered passage back to their people, honors awaiting them. Ethan was offered a commendation and a quiet return to obscurity. None of that mattered anymore. Lyra chose exile by choice rather than safety without him. Sierra declared Earth's frontier forests the most beautiful place she had ever known. Together, they built a life between worlds, human resilience joined with alien light. Their bond confused diplomats and inspired stories across the stars. A single human who chose kindness over caution. Two alien sisters who found warmth in a frozen storm. And a future that proved the galaxy's oldest truth. That love, once chosen, does not need permission. The first winter after the Dominion retreated was harsher than any Ethan remembered. Snow buried the forest paths, and the wind carried echoes of distant stars through the trees. Yet the shelter no longer felt small or lonely. Lyra had transformed part of it into a star-chart chamber, holographic constellations drifting like living memories. Sierra filled the remaining space with strange alien plants thriving under human lamps. They argued sometimes, softly, never with anger, learning how different hearts learn to share the same rhythm. Ethan often woke before dawn, listening to their breathing, still half afraid that one day they would be gone. Lyra sensed this fear and pressed her forehead to his, reminding him that bonds once chosen did not fade. Among her people, to abandon such a bond was unthinkable. Sierra teased him gently, calling humans strange for believing love was temporary. The galaxy did not forget them. Messages arrived from distant systems, quiet at first, then more frequent. Stories spread of a human who defied a Dominion cruiser with nothing but truth and stubborn mercy. Some called him reckless, others called him dangerous. But refugees began to arrive at the edge of the colony, not ships of war, but damaged vessels and desperate souls. Ethan helped where he could, sharing supplies, repairing hulls, offering shelter when storms trapped travelers. Lyra negotiated with off-world traders, her calm authority impossible to ignore. Sierra became a symbol of hope, laughing openly with children of a dozen species, teaching them that survival could be joyful. Together, they became something rare in the frontier, a fixed point of warmth. One night, as auroras burned across the sky, a small Dominion probe slipped past the colony sensors. It hovered silently above the forest, scanning for energy signatures long thought erased. Lyra felt it before alarms sounded, her bloodlight pulsing with warning. Sierra was already moving, fingers flying across controls she had rebuilt from scavenged parts. Ethan grabbed his coat and rifle, not because he expected to fight a fleet, but because standing idle was never an option. The probe descended, unfolding weapons not meant for diplomacy. And for a moment, the cold returned, sharp and familiar. Lyra stepped outside first, power shimmering around her like a living crown. She spoke words older than the Dominion itself, activating a starborn defense, protocol forgotten by empires. The forest responded, snow lifting into spirals of light, disrupting the probe's targeting systems. Sierra amplified the signal, broadcasting a message across open channels. This land is protected, not by weapons, but by those who choose to stand together. The probe fled, limping into the void. Ethan exhaled slowly, realizing his hands were shaking. Not from fear of death, but from the weight of everything they had built. That night they sat close, sharing warmth and silence. Lyra admitted that before the storm, before the crash, she had believed the universe was indifferent. Sierra confessed she once thought survival meant moving constantly, never settling. Ethan listened, then spoke of Earth, of humans who survived not because they were strongest, but because they endured together. In that moment, they understood what bound them was not rescue or debt, but choice renewed every day. Spring came slowly, melting snow into rivers that fed the valley. New shelters appeared nearby, built by hands of many species. No banners flew, no government claimed authority. It was simply a place where no one froze alone. Lyra taught starborn children how to read the sky. Sierra taught humans how to listen to alien hearts without fear. Ethan taught anyone willing that kindness was not weakness, but a form of strength the galaxy had forgotten. Ships passed overhead, some stopping, some only watching. And legends grew, not of conquest, but of a man who found two sisters in the snow. And of two sisters who chose a human world not because it was safe, but because it was home. Long after the Dominion faded into history, long after borders shifted and empires collapsed, travelers would still tell the story in quiet ports and drifting stations. About a storm that should have killed them all. About warmth found where none should exist. And about a truth written not in treaties or stars, but in the simple act of refusing to let others freeze. Years passed in a way that felt both slow and impossibly fast. The settlement grew without ever meaning to become a settlement. People arrived broken and left whole, or stayed and helped others heal. No walls were built, yet nothing hostile ever crossed the valley. Some said it was luck, others whispered of starborn wards. Ethan believed it was simpler than that. Those who came with harm in their hearts felt out of place long before they acted. Lyra had changed over the years, though her people would have insisted Starborn never truly changed. She laughed more easily now, her once distant gaze softened by countless small moments. Sierra changed even more, shedding the last traces of fear that had once followed her like a shadow. She ran through the settlement barefoot despite the cold, greeting everyone as if they were family. Ethan watched them often, quietly amazed at how the universe could feel so vast and yet so intimate. The first warning came not as an attack, but as an invitation. A transmission, encoded in ancient starborn harmonics, reached Lyra alone. She listened in silence, light pulsing faintly beneath her skin. When it ended, she sat for a long time without speaking. Sierra noticed immediately, sitting beside her, fingers lacing together. Ethan joined them, sensing the weight of something inevitable. It was a summons from the Star Concord, an assembly older than the Dominion, older even than human spaceflight. They had watched the valley, studied the ripple caused by one human decision in a snowstorm. They did not threaten, but they did not ask kindly either. Lyra and Sierra were being called to account for breaking ancient neutrality laws. To stand beside a human openly, to build something permanent, was considered destabilizing. The Concord wanted them returned, separated if necessary. Ethan felt the words like physical blows, even before they were spoken aloud. Sierra was the first to stand, her voice steady despite the fear burning behind her eyes. She said no law written among stars had the right to undo a choice freely made. Lyra followed, her power flaring not in anger but in certainty. She explained that bonds were not weapons, and love was not a threat unless Empire feared it. The Concord's response was cold, logical, and final. They would come in person. The days before their arrival were strangely peaceful. No one panicked, no one fled. The people of the valley worked together, repairing shelters, sharing meals, telling stories late into the night. They knew they could not fight the Concord in any conventional way. Yet no one suggested surrendering the sisters. Ethan felt a deep, aching pride that made his chest hurt. When the Concord arrived, the sky itself seemed to bend. Vessels of impossible geometry hovered silently, refracting light into unnatural colors. Beings of energy and form stepped onto the snow without leaving footprints. Their presence was overwhelming, ancient, and utterly convinced of its own rightness. They spoke without mouths, their voices echoing inside every mind. This anomaly must be corrected. This bond must be undone. Ethan stepped forward before Lyra or Sierra could stop him. He felt small, painfully human, aware of every flaw and limitation. Yet his voice did not shake. He told them the story, not of laws or power, but of a storm. Of two sisters freezing in the dark while the galaxy looked away. Of a choice made without calculation or reward. He told them that if such a bond threatened cosmic order, then perhaps that order deserved to be questioned. The Concorde responded with something like surprise. Humans were rarely heard, only observed. Lyra added her voice, explaining that starborn law existed to preserve balance, not extinguish connection. Sierra spoke last, her words simple and devastating. She asked why an ancient assembly feared three lives choosing each other. The silence that followed stretched longer than the storm that had begun everything. Then something unprecedented happened. Others stepped forward. A trader saved by the valley. A child born there under 3 stars. A former Dominion officer who had laid down his insignia. Species and voices the Concorde had never bothered to catalogue. Each told their own version of the same story. That this place had given them warmth when the universe had not. The Concorde withdrew to deliberate, time bending strangely around them. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Ethan held both sisters' hands, feeling the truth settle in his bones. Even if the Concorde ruled against them, nothing could erase what they had already become. When the Concorde returned, their tone had changed. Not softened, but altered, as if recalibrated. They declared the valley a neutral haven, protected beyond political reach. They acknowledged the bond as a new precedent, neither forbidden nor controlled. An exception born of circumstance and choice. The galaxy shifted quietly at that moment, though few realized it yet. After the Concorde departed, the sky returned to normal. Snow fell gently, almost kindly. Sierra laughed first, a sound that broke the tension like sunlight. Lyra rested her head against Ethan's shoulder, exhausted but radiant. Ethan felt something loosen inside him, a fear he had carried since the storm finally released. Life continued, not dramatically, but meaningfully. Children grew up hearing the story not as legend, but as instruction. Help first, ask questions later. Choose warmth, even when the universe tells you not to. Ships came from farther away, guided not by profit, but by rumor. Some stayed, some moved on, changed forever. On the anniversary of the storm, they returned to the place where it all began. The wreckage long gone, the snow pristine and untouched. Lyra placed a small star crystal in the ground. Sierra added a human-made lantern beside it. Ethan stood between them, breathing in cold air that no longer felt cruel. He realized then that the story was never about aliens or humans. It was about refusal. Refusal to let fear dictate compassion. Refusal to believe survival required solitude. Refusal to accept a universe that punished kindness. And somewhere among the stars, empires would rise and fall. But the valley would remain. A quiet place where 3 lives once chose each other. And taught the galaxy that even the coldest night could be undone by a single act of warmth.